How's Miami right now?
The bars are packed, the streets are fucking filled. You got all the women, you got all the the bells and whistles out here, man. But yeah, Miami is still exactly the same. The way whatever you remember, it's probably worse now.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah. Like there was like everybody brought out their crazy cars. Like everyone like brought out their Cadillacs, like
Yes.
with the giant ass wheels and the rims and the
Right.
testicles hanging in the back.
Yeah, man. With the lights underneath. Yeah, man. It's still like that. It's crazy. It's like the Wild Wild West out here, bro.
Man, yeah. Shit. Well, so what did we want to get into today?
Yeah. Yeah, let's just just chopping it up with you, man. Off the cuff,
All
man.
right,
See
man.
what happens.
This is the Forge Project, a self-development coaching platform that is dedicated to providing the leadership and guidance to drive improved mental, physical, and spiritual well-being for boys and men. Welcome back, everyone. This is the Forge Project, and I'm your host, Justin Adams. And with me today, I have Alpha Villains from Miami, and we're just going to be talking about the usual things: men's issues, men's health, and solutions and ideas of what we could do about ourselves and how we can turn things around. So, AV, it's good to have you here, and let's see what's on your mind today.
Justin, thanks for having me on, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
It's an honor to be here, and I'm looking forward to just chopping it up with you, man. It's nice to be able to communicate with a man, in the fourth quarter of his life, and really just want to help men improve and remind them that it's never too late to just bounce back from whatever adversity that's thrown at us.
Yeah, yeah. So like I came across you probably like right when you just started, I imagine. Like was some of your early stuff was that with like the like rapping with OGs like that was that when
Yeah,
you first started popping up?
Yeah, yeah, really quickly. So basically, for those of you guys who don't know, I was there's a segment called the Red Pill, right? There's a community called the Red Pill, and basically it's a bunch of men that their mission technically is to improve men's knowledge base and really just be better with women and better men in general. That type of content, I started listening to about it for 3 years, 3 years ago, and that content really opened my eyes and confirmed a lot of things that I've always known inside, but never really had was able to articulate.
Hmm.
So I came up with a concept called alpha villains, and the name alpha villains is somewhat of an oxymoron, but in today's climate, the way the world is being conditioned now, every time a man is in his masculine frame or is appearing to be alpha, he's typically villainized, right? So the roles have changed, man. They are society's promoting women to be more masculine and men more feminine. So what I wanted to do was create, kind of change the narrative on the perception of how men are being perceived and the word alpha and encouraging men to become alpha in their own right. And whatever that means, bro. To alpha, this is kind of like looks. Alpha is subjective to everyone.
Hmm.
So I started doing that, and I started making some T-shirts. I started sending them out to some content creators, and they started to. Initially I didn't put my face out there. I wanted to just be focused on the brand of the T-shirt, and the messages were red pill inspired messages on the T-shirt. Some content creators took a chance on me. They decided to wear some of my clothing, and that's how I started getting notoriety. And then I had an opportunity to be on with the Afi Kingdom podcast, and somebody granted me an interview. At that point, when I went on the Afi Kingdom podcast, Coach EO, Everett Overton, saw me on that interview, and he asked me to come on his show. Once I came on the show, we had a really good first episode. And then we decided to come up with a concept called Conversation with OGs. And that's how I really kind of got out there. So shout out to EO and the Afi Kingdom podcast, because they're the ones that really, really, truly took a chance on me, allowed me to be on their platform. And that's how I found out about you, Justin. I know EO, you did an interview with EO as well,
I
which
did.
was a great interview.
Uh-huh.
And I said, damn, and that's when I started following you. And here we are, man.
Yeah, fantastic. So what was it that brought you to red pill knowledge? Because everybody's kind of got their story. Like I got mine, and I was hurt fucking blasted after a divorce a number of years ago, and I jumped on some authors, and it slowly led me in that direction. And it led me into Mgtow actually first. And for those of you who don't know, Mgtow is an acronym for men going their own way. And it started turning into this like seething cesspool of hatred and people who are like really down on themselves. So I like kind of gravitated out of that and bonded more with the red pill because it's more philosophical than and logical and science based rather than emotional. Which I feel like there's a lot of emotion going on in the Mgtow communities. I mean, red pill as well, but so I went from there, and then after that, I just kind of dropped red pill. I was like, fuck, I don't like, I like women, you know? So I kind of dropped that after a while, but it was certainly helpful. So like, what happened to you for like kind of waking up?
It's I get this question often, and I can't necessarily pinpoint what led me to the content. I know the first person that I actually heard was Steve the Dean Williams, and I heard, some of his programming. I don't know why or how on my phone, and I really liked his delivery. I really liked what he was saying, and it was a lot of things that I resonated with as far as being masculine and so forth. But I will say, for me, what led me to the red pill, I think, or confirmed, was just kind of like a turning point, man. Like I said, I'm 46 years old. I went to therapy. And I've said this before, I went to therapy and again, it wasn't over a heartbreak or anything like that. It was more so to kind of connect some dots, right? So just a quick backstory. I'm originally from New York. I'm the oldest of four brothers. Single mother raised me in Long Island, actually, Suffolk County. I ran away from home since at 17, right? So I ran away from home. I was doing my own thing with no male or masculine figure in my life. So I kind of became a nomad, and I was lost. Some of the innate feelings of being masculine and being a man. I was, when I was contradicting myself because based on what society was telling me to do versus how I was feeling. So I said, you know what? I need to go to therapy, bro, and kind of connect some dots for me. That shit helped me because when I initially told everyone that was close to me I'm going to therapy, they actually had an ulterior motive for me. They were more happy on a selfish level, kind of sedating me. They thought that I was going to come out more sedated. In actuality, I came out a little bit more ferocious, man. I came out a little bit more masculine, and I came out a little bit more of a confirmed person in my own right. And that's why I've said, that's when I went so, kind of having failures with work, relationships, just not connecting the dots and being able to be myself as a man. I needed an outlet. So I think that the red pill really was something that kind of felt I saw some value there. I also saw a lot of value in the Mgtow movement too, because again, I think there's phases to every man in his evolution. I believe in a lot of the philosophies that the Mgtow say. I believe in a lot of philosophies that the red pill say. But in actuality, for me now, just kind of putting my toes in the water and trying to kind of become a content creator, if you will. I kind of learned everything that I can learn from the red pill community, and I've kind of learned everything that I can from the Mgtow community. So for me, I'm really trying to focus on allowing and reminding men to really think for themselves. Take best practices from what you listen to and the content you listen to, etc., but try to make it your own so you can be authentic and be your own man. Because again, Justin, alpha for you can be different for me, and etc. So it was just life, man. Life in general. Nothing too specific, but just, in conjunction with therapy and listening to the red pill, it really made me see that there was a big gap for men being men and being able to be proud to be a man. And with society's narrative, man, I felt like it was important for me to just kind of participate somehow, some way. That was long-winded, by the way.
No, that's fine. That's totally fine. We got lots of time, man.
Okay.
But no, that's great. And kind of like what you were saying brought into my own mind about how these communities are growing like crazy. Like
Yes.
Mgtow and red pill communities are growing like crazy. And it's good in one sense, but on the other sense, they're not growing out of them. They're not separating.
Right.
So they're creating more hive type thinking.
Wow.
And
Yes.
and that's like essentially not, I mean, in my view, that's not masculine behavior.
Absolutely.
Striking out on
It's
their
very
own.
dangerous. You just said that the hive thinking. Like, I made an analogy. Like for me, I like to think of myself relatively wise, and that's why I kind of stayed away from the social media and all the bullshit because I kind of knew it was all bullshit. But what I did was I took it to an extreme. I built myself a panic room in my mind mentally, but the problem with building a panic room, I didn't build a window to see outside of the panic room. So
Ah,
I was just in my thoughts, safe in my thoughts, but the world was going on without me.
yep.
So that's another thing that these communities are creating. They're creating these big hives and their subscriber base is getting larger, but you're seeing a larger segments of populations thinking the exact same way.
Yeah.
And that's the problem, man. And that could go either way. That could be very dangerous. I mean, as a matter of fact, I have some content creators that used to affiliate with me and no longer affiliate with me because of the people that I affiliate with or whose platforms I'm on.
Hmm.
So for me, that kind of turned me off, not because they weren't messing with me, but because it just really kind of contradicted how I perceived them initially when they were listening and promoting free thought. And then when I really get behind the curtain, I kind of see some stuff. I'm like, okay. So it is what it is, man. But you're right, man. Free thought and that hive mentality is going to be dangerous if it's
Yeah,
not
and
checked.
and what that shows, in my perspective, it shows that the person hasn't healed. They went from a very vulnerable and weakened state, being
Right.
in a collective where they felt disempowered, they didn't feel masculine, they felt demasculated, and then they found a platform where there's people who are saying like, no, no, you don't have to be that way. You
Right.
come join us over here, learn from us. And so they
Right.
go in there and not actually like fully heal, and they use that and still maintain. So they're going from like participating in collective to participating in collective, and
Right.
lose a sense of individuality, and that can be really dangerous.
Absolutely.
Instead of just kind of spending time in it just for the time that you need.
Right. You're absolutely right. That's kind of like jumping from relationship to relationship without the healing process taking place.
Right.
And, again, we all need to feel, and that's the thing, man. It's kind of like if you're a recovering alcoholic and you skip the program, you kind of run, leave the program short, and then you think you get strong enough to go back to a bar. But the problem is a lot of people aren't strong enough, right? So when people look for guidance, they look for leaders, etc. It is technically the leader's responsibility to dismiss the student. The problem is these alleged leaders or cult leaders, whatever you want to call them, they're not dismissing anyone. They're keeping everyone in. So this is why it's so divided amongst this fear. And a lot of guys in these communities, they really try to shame women or they really try to make it a divisive community where it's men against women. But in actuality, the people that men have to really be concerned about is this fellow man. Those communities, man, they really make a big divide. And for me, when I initially came in, I was kind of like very naive in a sense where I wanted to really kind of get everybody together. Not everybody, because I know there's egos involved, but try to create a big platform where men can really, with so much reach and so much stature, can really reach men and really empower them. But
Hmm.
again, man, like they say, there's more money in the disease, and I
Of
think that
course.
there's a concept there that they're doing it. And it's unfortunate, but with guys like us who are just starting out, that can be perceived as being a hater. But time will tell, man. It is what it
Yeah.
is.
There's a sense of profitability from
Absolutely.
keeping people angry, hurt, and upset, and reminding them constantly, because Mgtow has basically one message. Red Pill has basically one message. You can learn about them both within like a couple of hours,
Facts.
right?
Because it's all redundant,
Yeah,
right?
you could, it's not like a super complex system like you're
Right.
trying to learn fucking Hinduism. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like it's just a very simple belief structure and belief system. So, but they keep producing content over and over and over, regurgitating the same things over and over with the intent of spiking emotions. So when
Right.
you spike emotions, it gets people kind of back into their feelings of pain, and those scars don't get to heal.
Right. And it
So they
also
just,
sparks dependency.
yes,
Right.
exactly. And they're like, oh, and like, so it's like they hurt you and then give you the answer, and then hurt you and then give you the answer. So they keep you in this like circle. I mean, like, I'm not a big religious guy, but it kind of reminds me of like church, like where
Yeah.
they don't want you to leave. They want more and more parishioners,
That's what I'm saying. And
right?
yeah, and again, it's unfortunate, right? But again, I understand the way it works, the way the world works. I understand capitalism. I understand the hustle and the business. I truly do, man. So that's why for me, and that's another thing you just said, Justin, that's what's kind of stagnating, not necessarily stagnating, but it made me revise my business model in terms of my participation in the sphere. I don't necessarily think that the sphere is for me because of what we're discussing. It's not because I'm not the fraternity type of guy. For me, I would prefer, Justin, if we were leading leaders. And what does that mean? That means two leaders in their own right, Justin and myself. We're having a good conversation, but we're both leaders in our own right. I don't necessarily want to lead followers because for me, that's not, I mean, and we all got to start somewhere. I get it. But my point is, it's very important to promote free think to be a free thinking man. The information is there. It's at your disposal. And I think guys like us and a very select few of people will be there to provide the context because there is a gray area with the red pill shit. There's a gray area with the Mgtow shit. But a lot of people take it so literal that it really becomes a left way of thinking, and that's a problem.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's this guy. He's on YouTube, and he's a red pill content creator, and his stuff is just rock solid. Like you could tell he's a dude who does a shit ton of research, and I want to get him on because he's very well spoken and he knows his stuff, and it'd just be interesting for people to hear the more scientific and sociological aspects of these things.
Right.
And I can see merit in it to a certain degree, but it's like at one point for me, I was like, well, I can study surfing and I can study the ocean and all the dangers in the water as much as I want. But if I want to learn to actually surf, I just have to get out there and begin surfing.
Facts.
And just get tossed around by the waves and quite possibly get smashed onto, a coral reef.
Right.
And and that's where like guides come into play. That's where coaches come into play. That's where like really good authors come into play, and to kind of give you that support structure so that you can set out on your own and kind of stand on your own feet and make your own assessments as you grow and say, okay, this is what I want to do. That's what I don't want to do. And I think that's where a lot of guys get scared. They get stuck at that edge of being able to like let go of that red pill pacifier or that Mgtow pacifier and say, okay, what do I want?
Yeah,
Right?
I think what it is too, man. It's kind of like because again, the red pill community and some of their content in the early stages of my life saved my life theoretically. Like really got me
same.
out of a jam. So there's a sense of loyalty, and as men, we're loyal to a fault, right? So we're loyal to the guys that were there for us, even though we never met them before. They kind of put things in perspective. They help us get over a breakup, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But again, if we are loyal to those guys and we're waiting for them to cut us loose, it'll never happen.
No.
That's part of where the growth, like you just said, comes in. We understand, we pay respect to the people who helped us out, and we thank them, but it's time for us to go. And I think that's the true sign of a man growing. Now, again, paying homage and periodically, affiliating yourself with a person to help you refresh your memory, that's one thing. But to constantly be glued to somebody who saved your life 5 years ago, that's got to tell you. Got to look at yourself in the mirror and say, have I evolved? Am I just, is this my umbilical cord? And a lot of guys aren't doing it,
which makes it like deadly ironic.
Yeah.
Well, with the whole men going their own way, why are there so many of them then?
Facts.
In a big fucking group, like it's so incredibly ironic that they're like collectively saying we're going on our own way.
Yeah.
I said, well, really? Because
I'm going this way.
I'm going over in that direction.
Yeah, I'll meet you over there. Yeah,
yeah, like what you're saying about and that's kind of where the development of the individual of their own masculinity comes from, is navigating the lands on your own, possibly utilizing some of the skills you learned. But still making your own choices, what paths you want to take, and develop your own masculinity. And getting away from what is a perception of what you
Right.
think is the perceived notion of what that is, because it's. I mean, I would say yeah, there are probably commonalities that run through like different cultures and things like that, that you kind of can't really negotiate out of.
Right.
Like if you don't take care of yourself, like if you just can't get through life without help, then you're probably not like being your own guy.
Right. I kind of like to rewind a little bit to what you said too about getting yourself out there. Getting going on the water, man. Getting slamming into a coral reef. It, you know, we live in a society right now where everything people lack very big social skills, and everything is theory. There's not enough practicality. It's like shadow boxing. So you
And they're
said men are.
scared.
Yeah, and we're scared. And listen, man, they're scared, and I get it. I was there. There are certain things that I'm still scared of, but
Of course.
it's conversations like this that kind of there's more value in conversations in light only because we understand that you're scared. See, a lot of times the content creators will call you a pussy for being scared, and meanwhile, someone who's been there can see the fear in the content creator that's saying they're calling the other guy a pussy. I could see it. I mean, I see the trauma. You got the guys that are still fat inside and mentally, but they got a nice body. You got the guys who just started getting laid. You got the geeks who just came into money. You can tell if you've been around, you can kind of tell, right? So, but again, when you got you and I talking like this, it sounds like from a standpoint of hate, but it's not necessarily, it's not even hate at all. What it is that we understand that men are scared, but you have to take what, if you have to really see and ask this yourself, the person that I'm listening to, do they really want what's best for me or do they want what's best for them? And if you can tell if somebody wants what's best for you, it's kind of like when you love something, you let it go. So if they got love for you, they should be in a position to at least tell you that the door is right there and send you on your way in a pleasant way and let you know that you're ready.
Yeah.
Because a therapist, when you go to therapy, my therapist told me, bro, she's like, listen, you don't need me. And this was maybe after 6 or 7 sessions. And that confirmation told me, made me feel like, okay, she really has my best interest at heart because she could have just kept pimping me, but she didn't. So guys need to understand. It's kind of like we've been so reliant on, the valuable information that they've given us, but we can't see that there's more value in practicing what they've given you than actually just listening to it, man.
Of
So
course.
that's important.
And we kind of get stuck in these modes of consuming and thinking that that's what's doing it for us.
Right.
And I mean, fuck, like I read so many, well, not so many books, probably about a dozen books on the psychology of women, the psychology of men, like interpersonal dynamics, dating, pickup, and all that stuff. Like I was studying like old like mystery method type stuff,
Right.
and this was like right after I got divorced because I was like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing anymore. Because like
Right.
prior to me getting married, I guess you would just call me just like a natural. Like I just had
Right.
natural game to the point where I didn't even know I had game.
Right.
I just found it easy to talk to women and sleep with them. I don't know. Like I didn't question it. And but then after being married and being detached from that sort of thing and doing the things that I did to myself psychologically that led to the demise of my marriage, coming out of it, I felt like a hermit crab with no shell. And I was like,
Right.
what the fuck do I do? And so I read so much and like ingested tons of video and 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 then didn't matter really. It didn't do
Right.
much for me, and that's where a lot of guys get stuck. And they're like,
Right.
just what you were saying, like get kind of stuck in theory.
Right. And you said something very important, man. I've been in long-term relationships too. And what you said something very important for guys too. Like you said, you don't know what it was. It was just you were just a natural. And the thing is, it's hard to. That's why I guess this is when maybe we have a different perspective on the whole red pill community because we were naturals. We're naturals, right? Now sometimes when you get into a long term relationship, your blade gets dull. You're not necessarily in an environment where your natural state is drawing the attention that you want because you're in a more of a monotonous routine. And I always tell guys, there's nothing wrong with a long-term relationship, especially at this age. Sometimes it could be very beneficial, but you have to make sure as a man, you cannot rely on her to allow you to be the guy that she first fell in love with. You have to take it upon yourself to remain that guy, whether that's, riding your bike, going fishing with your boys, going out once a week. You have to set those standards and boundaries so that way not only is the woman being prepped already, she's going to save you time to see whether or not she's going to be in it for the long haul, based on your demands or the way you want to live, or vice versa. Because you can't explain to a woman that, listen, I'm gonna keep doing what I'm doing, so that way you don't, you can always be in love with me, because they're not going to understand that, man. So
and that's kind of corny anyways.
It is corny. Yeah. And yeah, bro. And that's what I'm saying. And the onus has to be on the man.
Yeah.
So now that you said, you came back, you read all that information. I never read those books. I did read the Rational Male when I first got it. I was like, okay, what is this? I heard it.
Yeah.
But a lot of the shit that you were saying, like you said earlier, it's not that difficult, bro. Like, there's a lot of shit that's regurgitated, and you could just collectively stay on one person's channel and hear everything you need to hear, bro. And then you should be fine.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, like I was saying before, like that, like The Rational Male is not a bad book, but it just stays like very scientific, and from like it's like sort of like a sociological book, and it's totally fine. And but still, at the end of the day, you gotta, if you want to change, you have to put action into your life.
Facts.
And and that's kind of like what that little video was about, like with me getting depressed, because it's like I wasn't going to be able to change my mental state until I stepped foot back into the gym, and broke that mini cycle of relaxing, and just kind of like, all right, push, get back being comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Right. And I commend you for that too, man, because again, even though there's more of a spotlight in mental illness, and I think that spotlight with mental illness, right, is more of a money bag, right? Because again, there's more money in the disease. But I commend you on being open and telling about how you had a low moment, and the fact that you were able to discern that and you took action. Because I know, listen, I've had moments of I can't scale it, but I've had moments of depression, and it's very difficult to get up and go do shit that you don't want to do because it's so comfortable in that depressive state.
Oh yeah.
So the fact that you know your triggers and you shared it with everyone, that's very important. So for people who are listening, that we get it, bro. Being depressed, staying in your dirty drawers and just eating shit is comfortable, but you gotta dig deep and know that if you want to get out of it and you want to become better, you got to do what's conducive to making you feel better.
Right. And even just like listening to bullshit like this podcast isn't going to do anything for you.
Right.
And I mean, it's like all the best that we can do is lead by example, walk the talk that we're talking, and with luck, whatever you're saying, someone might need to hear that.
Absolutely.
And so it's important, I think, for guys who are solid in themselves and with that continual grind of working on themselves, gets out there and tries to help people. Because I feel that there's way more people that need it than don't.
Right. And you'll be surprised too, man. Again, as men, we're being, we're supposed to be stoic, or we're supposed to just be, and quite frankly, I've never been more comfortable being my age, man, because, and I'm jumping around, but I've never been more comfortable being my age because, you start to realize that there's a lot of people that you don't necessarily need in your life, and there's a lot of people that you don't necessarily like in your life. So the best way Justin is saying too is, you'd be surprised how many people need help, but a lot of times they won't come up to you and tell you that they need help. So the best thing that you can do is live your life and try to lead by example. And even if you change somebody's life, by one action you do, you probably won't get thanked for it, but at least you'll know that you're doing it in your own regard, man. And you will help people because listen, man, nobody supports you more than people that aren't saying anything. The people, even the haters, man, if they're not messing with you, they're not giving you kudos. They're watching you though, bro. They know everything about you. So you living your life the way you want on your own terms in a right way, it's inspiring whether they want to admit it or not.
Oh, sure. And because I think because of social media and there being potentially millions of eyes on you.
Right.
it drives people into feeling insecure and always
Yes.
wanting to have the best foot forward. And if you're running a business, I get it. Like you need to have your best foot forward,
Right.
but there's also something about humanization
Right.
and showing that you're a person, that you're really here, doing things, making mistakes, having successes, and 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 showing people that it's okay to just get out there and do things.
Right.
But you combine that. See, this is a problem that I see. You combine that social insecurity with what's happening emotionally with men. What you mentioned early on with the what in some circles called the pussification of men,
Right.
and urging them to be like really in their feelings. And so it's like you get these like very like kind of weak emotional guys who are now very, very socially aware and scared.
Yes.
And they don't know what to do because I know that they're feeling fucking frustrated. I know it.
Of course. Yeah. And that's the thing. That you know what you just said it. They are socially aware but scared. They have so much information in their head and they
Too
know
much.
it all by way of theory. They really just talk themselves out of the deal. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? It's kind of like the salesman who talks way too much. The client was ready to sign 10 minutes ago, pal. Then now that you talked her out of it, you gave her more information to say, you know what, no, I don't want to do it. That's the problem. And that's the thing. They'd rather you be tuned in and watching their live than actually living your life and trying what you remember, because there's more value in the field doing something, because people don't a lot of people learn differently, man. Some people learn with their hands, some people learn by reading and theory. So you have to find out, whoever's listening, you guys have to really identify. You can't think like us, you have to think like yourself. Justin can lead you in the right direction. I can possibly say something that might lead you in the right direction, but ultimately you make the final decision on what's going to work for you and what's not. And being scared, I listen, it's scarier to continue to live your life scared than to actually just confront it, man. Because life is short. We don't know what's gonna happen, man. And you got to kill your own dinner.
Yeah,
That's pretty
yeah.
much it.
Well, like what I tell some of my guys, one of the advices that I give them is to try not to take themselves so seriously, and I
Yes.
give them exercises to kind of get comfortable with not necessarily making a fool of yourself, but
Right.
not taking yourself so damn seriously because all that is ego. And
Right.
like ego isn't always having bravado. Ego is also very much in protecting of yourself, of protecting an image that you think you are.
Right.
So it can lead you to like a living in a way of fear, or it can also lead you in a way of being like in bravado and having a big
Yeah.
chest.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was on a podcast the other day, the Alpha Kingdom podcast, and we
Yeah.
talked about sex. And I told him, and I made a comment saying basically, when I started enjoying sex when I took the ego out of it, because, I wasn't putting so much pressure on to ensure that I really rocked this girl's world. But when I took that out of it, it made my experience with her that much more enjoyable. And just like you said, in conjunction with the ego and making yourself not taking yourself so seriously, you have to rely on the perception that you want to create, not what you think other people see as you. So if you think something is funny, you do it on your own terms. If you want to do something that may not necessarily be perceived as masculine, but you know what you're doing, do it for yourself. So it all goes back to thinking for yourself, man.
Yeah.
But not taking yourself so seriously will disarm someone. Let's say if you're trying to go out on with someone on a date, like if you're just so stoic and so serious, a smile can disarm someone. So it's very important to get comfortable with not taking yourself so seriously and being stoic when necessary, but also knowing how to disarm someone by just being yourself.
Of course. I had this really good friend of mine. He's dead now. Rest in peace, Brian.
Oh,
And he was this white guy, grew up in like bad side of Boston, and he was a poet and a rapper. And this kid could fucking flow like nobody's business. But he was also like a really emotional guy. Like he had like a bipolar disorder, I think.
okay.
So he got like really emotional and stuff, but he put it into his work, right? So he channeled
Right.
it. But he had this amazing gift. I don't know if you've ever met any of these type of people who they have the golden tongue, and they have
Yes.
this energy about them where no matter where the fuck they go, they make friends.
Yes.
And it's the type of person where when you're around them, you just feel better. You just feel
Right.
amazing being in their presence because they make you laugh. They make you feel, they disarm your ego.
Right.
And he moved to Oakland, California, and he knew about these bars where they had like an open mic for rappers, and he's like, fuck, like I really want to like show these people my skills, and I want to just do it because like where he was at, there was no other places, no other outlets.
Right.
So he rolled in there. He's like this only white guy, and like he's covered in tattoos, but like the most visible one is a big fucking rainbow butterfly in his fucking throat,
Oh,
right? With balloons underneath it.
right.
Okay. So he's wacky, like artist kind of kid, right?
Right.
And of course, like the vibe was not friendly in that
Right.
sense. It was like, who the fuck
is
are
this guy?
you
Right.
hitting on women, making people laugh, and so on? So like, of course, like people like step to him, and he had this amazing gift of disarming that. And like by paying compliments or just getting people like talking about themselves and so on, and just bringing that like a good positive vibe.
Right.
And before you know it, he's on stage, he's got people laughing, he's doing his rap on the open mic. And it was just like such a great dude, but he had that ability to kind of bring people out of their fear states and get comfortable with who they are. And it takes a lot of practice. I mean, he wasn't born that way. Like he actually worked at it.
Right. Yeah. You said something very important, kind of just surrounding yourself around people like that. I have some friends that are like that too. But what I will say, when I was growing up, because I tried to emulate them, I tried to emulate them their way, and it didn't work for me. But this is all coming back to thinking for yourself. It's important to have, people like Justin was describing, people like I'm describing, just that velvet tongue. Everybody likes them. It's like an anomaly. You don't get it why they like them, but they just do. But it's important to understand that energy, and that takes time and wisdom and experience. But whenever you try to be like someone else, sometimes it's just not in the cards, man. You will never have that velvet tongue, but you can
No.
get some things from that person and use it in your own right. So that's the thing, with this day and age, with social media and everything like that. Everybody wants to be like everybody else and live like everybody else, where they're leaving their things at home unattended. You haven't changed the oil in the car, you haven't cut your grass, but you're still fixated on someone's phone or fixated on what someone else is saying. I don't think that's going to go anywhere in terms of just people just trying to cope and live vicariously through other people. But I do think that, podcasts like this and, ones I try to hope to bring out soon, will kind of be a niche where we can kind of ground people to remind them that that's just a bubble. And you don't necessarily have to live like that to have a really good life in your own right.
Well, and frankly, you can't.
You can't.
Like you can't live like so and so. You
Right.
can't do it. You could probably try everything they do, but you still won't be able to match it
Right.
because
You'll be frustrated.
you're not bringing you're not bringing their history
Right.
to the whole thing. And what the interesting thing is like when people say, well, just get to know yourself and be yourself, and they're still looking for like, well, what is that? What does that look like? And it's like, well, dude, you have to actually do the work to figure that out.
Exactly.
And that's all the things that I do with
Good.
with the young men and the older guys that I talk to, is that all I do is just through certain exercises and questioning lead them to that door
Right.
so that they can open it up, and then I say, okay, bye bye.
Exactly. And you see, this is what I'm talking about. And I commend you for that, bro. Because again, we all know what works and what doesn't work, but we all know what works and the reasoning why it works. Like you watch some content that have 50,000, 60,000 views in 3 hours, but you look at the titles, you look at the JPEG, the image that they have associated with it. This is why. So sometimes I look at the content creators that sometimes they may be a reflection of their audience sometimes, because if how can you possibly like that, and then when you got something content such, with substance, such as that poignant phrase that you just said, You got to do the work to find out which door you're going to walk through. I cannot push you through the door. And this
No.
is where the context is needed. Context, because someone says be yourself. You got to be a man, and you got to be a high value man. Well, what does that mean? It's going to mean different things for different people.
Nobody
Man.
knows. There's
Right.
there's no blueprint.
Right, exactly. And that's the thing. So providing context, that's what you're doing. And I know there are a couple other guys that are really just providing context. And the context simply is pointing them to the point where they can think for themselves. You ask your question, you ask it right back to them. What do you think I should do? Well, what do you think you should do? That's as simple as that, man. It's tough to get out
Right.
of, but you
And
can do
and
it.
and and face making them face themselves with like, well, what do I want? And trying to get an answer that isn't something that they heard or
Right.
something that they grew up hearing.
Precisely.
And that's
Precisely.
tough for a lot of people who've been indoctrinated with certain modes of thinking.
It's very tough.
So sometimes you have to spend time tearing down useless aspects of their psyche.
Right.
And and that can get difficult. It can get painful because it's attached to emotions, it's attached to ego. People make ego investments into certain ways of thinking,
Right.
and it prevents them from moving on.
You said something very important. You said they have to detach and break from certain things. And sometimes you got to do that with
Yeah,
family as well.
everything.
Like, Justin, you can't expect, your siblings or your family to see life the way you see it now. Why? Because you had different experiences. So sometimes you got to tear away, man. I had to tear away from some of my brothers because we're just not in line with things. My mother and I, we don't talk as much as we used to. It's still we love each other very much, but I just see things differently now, and there's no hard feelings, but it's just that I'd rather surround myself with people not who agree with me, but kind of see things the way that I see them, and I can learn from, because I don't want to go back to that narrative, man. I really don't, because it's funny. I used to say I was happier, air quotes, before I found this content. But at the end of the day, for me to go back there, I can't go back because I know what's going to be waiting for me if I go back to the old me, and I just can't do it. So I'd rather just be on an even keel. Good, some days are good, some days are bad, but I'd rather be that than have that high fictitious happiness for that moment, man. Because I'm past that dopamine phase.
Sure. Well, I mean, there is something to be said about like raising that average, though.
Right.
And like I did a fucking long ass video about like raising your vibration, and I kind of don't like to use the word vibration because it's very new agey, but basically like raising your state of mind.
Right.
And what I did is I bought like a mood tracker.
Okay.
So each day, like I can kind of plug in how I'm feeling,
Right.
and then note where, like, what was going on, like what thoughts or what activities I was doing during that mood. So I know whether to, if it brought me up, being like, oh, noted, I feel better when I do this X, Y, and Z.
Right.
And oh, I felt like shit and I was doing this, so maybe I should not do that. Right. And so it's just like a nice tracker so that you definitely will always have ups and downs in life emotionally. But you can raise that average by changing your like certain habits of your daily life, as well as certain habits of thinking.
Facts.
And the thing is that like we get really conditioned, I think, with negative thinking, like always like just kind of like ragging on yourself and like kind of reliving bullshit. And the minute you say, oh, I'm using affirmations or I talk to myself in a positive way, people think you're fucking crazy,
Exactly.
or like you're like losing your marbles trying to do that, when there's pretty much everybody does that, but on a negative side every day of their life.
Facts. Exactly. Exactly.
So why not take control of it? You know what I mean? Instead of just
Right.
letting the old nasty habit draw
Yeah.
draw the cart.
And
It's
you know why? You know why they call you crazy too? Is because they hate themselves. And again, like we said earlier, it's that depressive state. It's like it's very comfortable. It's in a weird way. It's kind of like
yeah,
if you drink way too much, you're gonna wake up with a hangover, but you still do it because you want to just. It's just that comfort. It's very comforting, but at the same time, you really have to understand, man, that knowing what triggers your happiness and what triggers your down feelings, those are things that you can tweak, like he's saying. So that way you can balance out the energy and just really do things that are more conducive to have more of a positive outcome. Because nothing's perfect, but at least if you can control a lot of the things that determine your happiness, you'll live a much more fulfilling life and a better day to day.
Sure. And I mean, it starts with just getting your mentality in the right way.
Yes.
Yeah, and just kind of keeping track, having a schedule instead of, because if you kind of let it go like willy nilly, like I'm coaching this kid. He's 17 years old and lives in India, and he's in a weird fucked up situation with his family, and like it's kind of like emotionally abusive, and apparently it's really common over there for like parents to be like super fucking hard and critical on their kids. So, but he's super depressed about it. And I'm like, well, I was telling him what we just said, where you have to take time to manually cultivate it. Right. Because I was like, look, your mind is like, it's like a plot of land. It's like, if you dig up a plot of land and just leave it be, weeds are going to grow on their own.
Right.
You don't have to do anything. Right. Mm-hmm. But you're not going to get roses or an orange tree or a head of lettuce just by stepping back and be like, oh, let's see what happens.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you have to get in there and plant the seeds and till it and water it and make sure it has good sun and make sure bugs don't get in there. Right. Like, you have to do something about changing that plot of land.
Absolutely, man. Yeah. And what you said about, the Indian and Asian culture, I know that there's a fine line. They're very strict on their kids because they don't want, their kids to adopt the Western ways or the American ways. So they really push academics, etc.
Which is basically laziness.
Yeah, lazy, right? Exactly. But what you said is very important for everyone who's listening. I mean, you can't complain about something without putting any work in. You got to nurture it. When you find somebody, when you find a good partner to be with, that you vetted properly, you want to nurture that relationship. You got to nurture your body. You got to feed your body. You got to work out on your body. You got to nurture your mind. Give yourself some time to think, to reset. So again, what we're saying is not only is thinking for yourself critical as a person, as a human being in general, but also taking care of yourself. And the way you do that is doing work towards things that's going to help nurture your body and keep you going in a positive light.
Yeah, and then that's going to bring around people, because if once you're doing that, you're going to be cutting out, like what we were saying, like with friends, family, lovers, so on.
Yes.
You're going to be cutting out things, because if you're noting, oh wow, I feel like shit when I talk to my uncle. It's like, well, I probably should not talk to my uncle as much. Or keep the conversation in a certain way. Like, I have some family members where I don't talk about certain things. I still talk to them, but when they ask me about X, Y, or Z, I'm like, I just change the subject. I'm like, oh, it's good. And then
that's it.
And don't get into it at all and just change the subject. Well, how you doing? How's that? How's that old car you've been working on? And just get them on a different track. And then on the flip side, you'll be bringing in people who are like-minded, who have a similar state of mind.
Yes. And what he said something very important. Again, all these examples and analogies that we're giving you, it really comes down to you making decisions and taking control of your life. What did he just say? He basically said he still talks to his family members, but he understands his triggers, that if he decides to go down this pathway of a particular subject, it's going to not turn out favorable for him. So as a man, as a woman, as a person in general, man, you want to make sure that you surround yourself with like-minded people and you control the frame. You don't have to be an asshole about it, but once you're stern and you have your standards, then you'll get to see who's respecting those boundaries and standards. And if they don't, then that's when you know that whether they're family members or you have a lot of history, this is somebody that can no longer be in the same light with the way they used to be if you're trying to become a better man. If they're not in line with what you're doing, you have to kind of break away. And that's the hardest part. But believe me, once you do it, you'll not only realize that it gets easier after time, you'll also start to see that you don't necessarily need as many people and your circle will get that much smaller, but you'll be happier when it does.
Oh yeah, because the quality raises up and it can get more dense.
Right.
And when it gets more dense, then you can really start doing things that kind of like benefit each other, like steel
Right.
sharpening steel.
Substance.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. And then you have people who see that and they're like, oh, what's going on with that? And either they want to
So
be part of it or they want to change so they can be closer to it.
right. And that's what you said. You said like vibration, energy. That's the thing. It's kind of like if you ever go to a bar, filled with women and you're just going there just to have a good time with your buddies, you'll be surprised how many people gravitate towards you because it's that same vibration, it's that same energy. And it's the same thing with what he just said. In the real world, outside of just dating, business, etc., when you are surrounded by like-minded people and you understand your path, people want to be a part of that. And the reason why people want to be a part of that, because the majority of people are lost, man.
Hmm.
So when they find somebody with purpose and drive and direction, people want to kind of see, hey, what are you doing? How'd you do that? Where can I do that? And then that's how you start to become a more confident person as well, because you're starting to see that what you're doing righteously is really having a positive effect on how people are perceiving you.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Talking to this guy who was having a really difficult time with his marriage, and I had to kind of bring it back to him and say, well, examine like kind of how he's feeling about himself, and because he was just completely focused on what she was doing,
Hmm.
and I had to explain to him that women are more like magnetized. They're more reactive until they need to be more active in decision making. But if you're like in that
Mm,
relationship, they're going to react to you for a time. And
right.
I'm like, you got to look at like what you're doing here and check yourself at the door and see
Right.
what's going on,
Right.
because she's just responding to the stage that you're setting, which is like a really shitty, unstable grounding. So she's like, I don't feel comfortable standing here on this stage, and I think I'm gonna go.
Oh, you know what you just said, man? Let me break that down. This is how I retain information. So what Justin just said is very poignant. He said that, women are responsive. There's a big difference between a woman being responsive and a woman responding. Responsive means that you're taking the lead and she is responsive to your actions in the relationship. But when a woman is forced to respond, that means she's speaking on your behalf because you're not necessarily leading the woman. And now she's making a response to say, listen, if this doesn't change, I'm leaving. That's how I read what you just said. But in a nutshell, men, you have to, like you said with that guy who's married, he has to really, when you're too busy worrying about what she's doing versus what you're doomed because you're never going to be on your square. And we all know that women are very emotional and they're up and down. So if you're constantly looking at that, there's no way that you're going to be solid as a man in your movements. And that's going to start to repel her because that's not the guy she wanted to get with initially.
Oh yeah, and the repelling isn't really even a choice. Like I
Right.
think I like at the onset. Okay, it's reactive. Okay,
Right.
so the repelling, it's like the guy's charge on like a magnet changes,
Hmm.
and her magnet stays the same, and like the same charge like repels each other. So it's at the onset, it's just like she's not even thinking; it's just reacting out of feeling. Okay, it's
Right.
like this doesn't feel right.
Right.
So you kind of withdraw or you step back or whatever. And then if it continues, there's no like opposite sort of feelings that draw the person in again and feel comfortable and aroused and excited and interested.
Right.
Then they're like, well, now I'm going to make a choice because I can't get into that field. I'm not being drawn in. So I'm going to make choices. I'm going to go hang out with Carl, or I'm just going to leave, or
Yep.
I'm going to move, or go back to live with my mom, or whatever,
Yeah.
or call my lawyer.
Yeah.
Like,
you
you
know, you
know,
know what? Yeah, you said it. That was awesome because a lot of guys too, especially in the sphere, there's a lot of people that will they'll promote the accountability of the women. Women are never accountable. But in order for a woman to be accountable, somebody has to hold her accountable. And the way you do that as a man is you hold yourself accountable. Like you just said, Justin, you just said it. It's kind of like sometimes the demise of a relationship is caused by the man losing his frame, stepping off his square, and forcing the woman innately to make a choice that doesn't jive with her pre you know her nature, her female nature, I guess, if you will. So the point is, guys, you have to hold yourself accountable. You have to figure out what you did wrong, what you did to lead to that, and hold yourself accountable and learn from it. Because if you don't hold yourself accountable, but yet you want your woman to concede to what you want, it's just not going to be congruent, and something will be off. And another thing, you got to make sure, guys, that you have to obviously you don't ignore anything. If you see a red flag, you confront it. But it's very important to make sure that you are at sound body and mind, so that way you can see some red flags. Because when your mind is clear, you work out, you're really structured throughout your day as a man for your purpose, to be purposeful. It gives you a lot more time to really see things for what they are. A lot of times when you're trying to juggle being who you want to be and juggling trying to figure out what she's doing, you're not giving yourself enough time to grow. It's kind of like working out every day. If you don't rest, your muscles aren't going to grow. So that's a lot of guys do the same shit. They're so busy worried about what the broad is doing, they're not really focusing on what they're not doing to keep the broad.
Yeah.
So it is what it is.
Yeah. And I mean, and that's like, even like women aside, because I mean, I'm sure we could go in on talking about women forever, but like,
Yeah.
but just as a general concept, like like women are just a microcosm for other
Facts.
things,
Oh my God.
right? So it's like that'll happen with business. That will happen with how you interact with the world. That will happen with how you interact with your own psyche. Like it's all the same shit.
Yep.
And it really just comes down to like your relationship with yourself as a man and knowing who you are and not being afraid of your dark side and accepting things that have happened to you and just understand that's what made you who you are.
Right.
And it's completely individualistic. It doesn't have to like fit a mold or some shit like that.
Yeah, and I think that the challenge for us, because what we're saying is fucking spot on. The challenge for us would be trying to convey this wise and truthful message to someone who's younger, right? So they can't see past their hand. And I get it, man, because when I was younger, you know what I mean, I wasn't listening to the people who tried to school me on some shit. But it's very important to understand that women are just a microcosm as a man. You know what I mean? The world is so much bigger. When you get to a certain age, like, our age, we still enjoy women. Let's not get it twisted. But we also enjoy things that much more. And what I find is that when you do things that you really enjoy, it's a different type of joy that attracts people. And if the byproduct of doing what you love, you might get somebody that wants to be a part of that journey, and you'll enjoy that person that much more because you're doing it on your own terms. You're doing what you love, and this person is deciding to accompany you. So yeah, there's so much more, man, than just women, bro. I promise you, and you'll enjoy it once you really accept that.
Yeah, I tell people this all the time. Like becoming 40. I mean, I'm 43 now, but like hitting 40, it's the fucking best time.
Bro,
Like 40,
it is.
40s are the fucking bomb.
Dude.
Like,
It is. Listen, my joints,
so much more clarity.
Yeah, my joints suck. I mean, I'm not as fit as I used to. I still do my thing, but yeah, the 40s, bro. I promise you. And even if you're not, technically you're not necessarily, you're still working on your credit. You're not financially where you need to be. The 40s, if you really embrace your 40s, this is the sweet spot because you know what women are about. You know what the headache is. You enjoy it when you decide to go in. And it just gives you that mental clarity, like Justin is saying, that once you see things for what they really are, it's important to know that you don't have to. There's an easier way to deal with finding out the truth, man, and just coping with it and just dealing with it.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's at that point when you're a little less egotistical in the sense
Right.
that you don't let your ego get in the way of seeing certain things about yourself.
Facts.
You don't really give a shit as much. Whereas like this kid that I'm talking to in India, he cares so much about what people think of him. And I get it. Like I remember being in high school and being so petrified of what people thought of me.
Yeah.
And it was just a major concern. So it's kind of interesting because not the same stuff works. Like I have to tailor how I want him to approach things mentally so he can understand what I'm saying.
Right.
Because if it's like, if I tell you to fuck your feelings, you know exactly what I'm saying.
Right.
But he's not going to get that. He'll be, because he's like in his feelings, right?
Dude.
Like he's like completely soaked in feelings. So
Yeah.
he's going to be like, fuck myself.
Yeah.
He won't get it.
Yo, Justin, that's gonna make you that much sharper in your profession and what you're doing to help these guys, because you're really having to come outside of yourself too and take your ego out of it to kind of water down something that's doesn't necessarily should be watered down, but you understand that there's levels to that kid. Because you can tell him to go fuck your feelings, and he may take that shit literal. Because that's another thing. These young people, they take everything so literal that it just seems like they can't even have a conversation. So they lack social skills. There's no masculine energy to kind of give them some tough talk. If you didn't play any sports, bro, you don't have any older siblings, older brothers, more than likely you're effeminate. You know what I mean? It is what it is. So the fact that you're able to kind of water things down and really hit home to these younger people and whoever you're coaching, that says a lot about you, and it's just going to make you that much better and sturdier in the game, bro. So
I hope so. I hope so.
Nah, no doubt, man.
And like you brought something up that just made me remember of the danger that a lot of these, like, because I worry about the youth. Like, I mean, I've got a son, he's 9, he's coming up. I've got a daughter who's 12, and so they're growing in with social media. Like, it's not this thing that happens. Like for you and me, it's something that happened. They were like, oh, look at that. Now there's social media. To them, it's like it's always been here. It's part of the reality from birth.
Right.
So what I worry about is people who are making content that is potentially dangerous for these younger minds, because I had to like remove a lot of shit from this kid's head that wasn't serving him, and it was kind of like exacerbating a lot of his like old wounds and shit from like his parents and so on. And he didn't understand that his previous ingesting of content was actually hurting him and holding him back.
Right. And that's the thing. And that's the thing, man. This is why I'm I support you 100%, man, because again, it's about taking out the layers of the narration, man, the narrative, what they're seeing, man. And we're outnumbered, quite frankly. We are outnumbered, man. And the way that information travels is so fast. We can't save everyone. We can't give them an opportunity to say, listen, there's another way. So it's very important, man, for the youth, bro, because again, you and I, we have strong demeanor, strong presence. It's very difficult for a young person to be receptive to us. And, I'm a nice guy. I'm a nice guy. I don't sugarcoat shit. But I think it's very important because there is a lack of that tough love mantra that I really want to kind of get out there. It's just a matter of trying to convey it in a way like you're doing to kind of water it down for somebody who is so moist from their feelings until they get to a point where they're a little bit sturdier and we can kind of go a little harder. It's kind of like levels with discipline. You get a verbal, then you get a written, then you get a final. So that's how we have to convey our messages. It's just about knowing your audience and really just kind of tailoring it to them and what they need.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I was kind of touching on is that like I'm concerned about, like, I mean, I'm not going to go out and be a crusader or any shit like that to like bring down what I think isn't healthy, but I worry about the content creators out there that are doing more harm than good.
Facts.
That keep people in these like negative states, because frankly, the real goal should be is to not need them.
That's what I'm saying.
Right?
Yeah.
I want people to leave me and never come back.
Right.
And so, I mean, I'm not a content creator, but like I think that should be their goal is to kind of help people heal and move on and put out a good message to like kind of having strength.
Right.
Instead of kind of keeping in that, like what the new agers would call a lower vibration.
Right.
where you stay in like fear, shame, anger, guilt, and things like that, and using that as like this like catalyst to kind of like stay in these states.
Absolutely, and I agree with you 1,000%, man. But again, it's about for me, and I co-sign that 100%, and that's my goal, man, to really just kind of walk a line where I'm able to kind of say what we're saying in a way on a large platform. Hopefully, things work out in that regard. But they'll understand to promote self-thinking, to promote positivity. And again, I'm not a crusader either, bro. You know what I mean? If you don't care, I don't care. Fuck it. I don't give a
Mhm.
shit either. But I got my own lawn to water. But at the same time, I do know that there is a necessity, and it's very necessary for guys like us who really want to promote the betterment of men by way of finding out what works best for you. Again, we've listened to the Mgtow, we've listened to the Red Pill, and I still listen to it. Let's not get it twisted. But what I'm saying is, I have the ability, and you have the ability to discern and pick out and choose what works best for us in the direction we want to go, not just kind of be confused. A lot of these guys don't have that. So hopefully we can continue to provide some context with what you're doing, with what I continue to do, and that way that people can make a better decision
Yeah,
for themselves. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
absolutely, and not be afraid to kind of create their own, and
Right.
like when they're done,
Right.
like there was this story that my kung fu teacher told me years ago, and I mentioned this in another episode. So for those listening, I'm sorry for the rewind. But there's a story of like this guy. He was like a tea guy, and he was like just his hobby was like the tea ceremony. It was Japan, like ancient Japan or whatever, and and if you know about the tea ceremony, they take it super seriously. It's like how the Russians treat ballet.
Mhm.
And so he's in the open market looking to buy some tea, and he accidentally bumps into a samurai who's like patrolling the area. And the samurai's like all up in his ego, and he gets really fucking pissed off because he scuffed up his, his new fucking sandals or whatever. And he's like, "You're fucking done, dude. So I want to meet you tomorrow at the fucking whatever bridge. Bring your sword. We're having a duel."
Right.
And the old tea guy, he's like, "Fuck, like, what do I do?" So he doesn't know what to do, but he just continues his shopping for tea. He goes home and does his thing at home. Later that night, the samurai follows him. He follows him to his house and stakes it out because he just kind of wanted to watch the dude to see uh like, who he was going to be killing later the next day.
Right.
And he looks through the window and he watches the dude perform the tea ceremony. And it was done to like 100% perfection, absolutely perfect. And so the next day, the old man arrives at the bridge. He doesn't have a fucking sword, and but he has honor. So he's like, "Fuck it, I'm going because that's what I have to do." The samurai's there, and the samurai approaches him from like the short bridge, and basically he's like, "Sir, I cannot, I cannot go through with this duel. I can't strike down a master such as yourself."
Right.
And the guy was like, oh, okay. Like, and bowed, like, said, like, "I appreciate you not killing me, basically, have a nice day." But
Right.
basically, the samurai saw such heightened mastery in him that he saw him as an equal.
Right.
And it looked completely different. It was fucking tea. And the other guy's a goddamn trained warrior. But he saw his equal. And he's like, or even above. And was like, damn, I got mad respect for this guy. I can't take him down. He's a goddamn virtuoso. So, like, when it comes to like being your own man and figuring it out after you walk through that door, like, understand, guys, that you're not gonna reflect anyone. Like, you're not gonna look like anybody out there.
Right.
But if you're solid, you're solid,
Exactly.
and the
And you said
respect will
it.
come.
Right. And that's the thing. When we talk about being authentic, it's very simple. Just think like yourself. Just be yourself. Wear what you want to wear. Say what you want to do. Date who you want to date. But there is power. Because again, to be to be forewarned is to be forearmed. There is enough content out there for the amount of content that's out there is not congruent with the amount of mistakes and the amount of questions that people are continuously asking and doing. It just doesn't make sense. So it just goes to show you that they're caught in a matrix within themselves, and keep listening in that beehive, like you said, because with all this information that's out there, why are you guys still asking the same question? So that you'd rather watch someone upgrade their studio and work on their content versus working on yourself. So that's when
Mhm.
you really have to figure out what is a priority. Is a priority being on his live, listening to what he's saying, or is a priority talking about like what Justin's saying, going out there, getting on a surfboard, getting on the water and figuring out what's going to work best for you.
Right. And if you have questions, there's people that are available to help you. Like
Right.
instead of just going to some random YouTube channel, I mean, like how to talk to girls, like really do research and find out who really fucking knows how to talk to women.
Right.
Right. And like when people like, I mean, I can help with that. But what I really do is I pass people over onto Steve.
Right.
And I say, listen, you want to like talk to a grandmaster? Go. Like I can be a good teacher, but I'm no grandmaster. Go talk to a grandmaster, right?
Exactly.
And that's kind of like what steel sharpening steel does is just knowing like who to
And I'm
support and
glad you
where to
brought
do it.
this up. Right. Yeah. I didn't mean to cut you off,
No,
but
no.
that you just made me remember something. And this is what I wanted to say. So, in addition to being creating alpha villains, I want to start this network, which I've kind of started already, called MAN, which is the Masculinity Awareness Network.
Yeah,
I
that
am
was
not a
my next question. I wanted to kind of go back to you, really get off all this there, just really see what's in the
what's my
plans
goal.
for you. Go for it.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, we've just been chopping it up. So, man, Masculinity Awareness Network, just like Justin said, and that's what reminded me. Basically, I'm not a coach. I don't know what capacity that I'm gonna do, how I'll participate in this manosphere, but iron sharpening iron. The Masculinity Awareness Network is I want to combine, create content, do future events with men who are like-minded, such as yourself, such as EO, such as Adafi Kingdom, such as Steve the Dean Williams, because those guys specialize in different areas that I don't necessarily specialize in. Yeah, can I teach you how to talk to a chick? Absolutely. Can I teach you how to exercise? Sure, I can. Can I teach you how to, where to invest? I can show you what my portfolio is, but I want guys who specialize in different areas that encompass a well-rounded man. And that's where the Masculinity Awareness Network, that's what I'm trying to build right now. So
That's
I've been
cool.
yeah, I've been fortunate, man, because again, I don't have, EO gave me a shot, and this is what led me to you, and I've had an opportunity to be on some shows with different content creators, and now I'm in a position where I not nobody's beating down my door, but I can at least cherry pick who I want to work with because I believe in their vision. They promote thinking for yourself, and they really care about the betterment of the man. So that's important. So the Masculinity Awareness Network, that's something that I'm really focusing on because the alpha villains portion is more geared towards a younger demographic, and that was done
Right.
intentionally with the clothes and stuff like that. So I'm gonna redo that, and I have some male, younger people represent that for me. But the Masculinity Network is basically something that I can really sink my teeth in because I'm an older gentleman. So I eventually would like it to see similar to TED Talks. It's going to be Man Talks, right? So Man Talks. So we'll have different clips from different content creators, such as yourself, or people who just have a good message that people need to hear. So that's the ultimate goal for 2021. In addition to kind of just creating some content on my YouTube channel.
And this would be like a website, yes, that sort of acted like a
Yes.
hub.
Yeah, precisely. So
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
so I'm just trying to build my name now. Low, slow and steady. But ultimately, man, like you said, I know a guy. So say, hey, how do I talk to chicks? Hey, I know a guy. Hey, I need somebody that's gonna coach me on how to dress. I know a guy. I need somebody that's gonna coach me. Somebody in India. I know a guy.
Hmm.
Things like that. That's how you really build networks, and that's how you really make a difference, as opposed to because it's not a hive situation. It's basically giving you an array, an assortment of things that you can choose from, and you decide you decide what works best for you.
Right. And then from there, I mean, I could see like things. I mean, once we're, more states are like Florida that allow us to congregate more. I mean, I could see that turning into like events and things where you have
Absolutely,
like guests come out and kind of
absolutely.
like run workshops and things like that.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the goal, man. That's
Yeah.
so yeah. So everything's been pretty strategic. I'm very fortunate, man. The EO, Afi Kingdom, you guys didn't have to allow me to come on. So I appreciate that. But yeah, man, that's the goal. That's where I see this going. It's I will say it's very difficult for me, even to this day, even though we're promoting self-thinking, we're human, right? So sometimes I'll see different content. I'm like, damn, how did they get so many views? So I still feel that pressure, but conversations like this always bring me back to say, okay, I am doing doing the right thing. I'm not gonna fit into all types of genres, and I don't necessarily want to because it's not the message that I want
Of
to
course,
convey.
of course. Well, and I mean, to like what to your point about like how did they do this or that? I mean, there's straight up like factual strategies
Oh
on
yeah,
how to
definitely.
create certain content that has certain wording at a certain pace that gets
Yes,
minds in a certain way that
yes,
it'll make them stop and read or listen.
yeah,
And I'm
definitely.
learning about it right now. It's like
Okay,
fairly like it's basically like marketing psychology,
right, right,
which I
right.
never really learned like back in the day when I should have. But
Yeah,
but yeah, it's like all the it's all the
yeah,
same
you're
shit.
right. Yeah, it is, and it's useful too, man. I'm learning that as well. But I'd rather learn like this because I'm making mistakes. I'm getting dirty. So now I know that once we do have an opportunity, and Justin, I'm manifesting this shit now, man. We are going to be in our own lane doing this shit on a larger scale. I feel it because there's a shift, and we're aligned with the right people. I feel. Once we get those nooks and crannies and we kind of figure those things out, man, we'll be right up there, changing lives on a larger scale as well.
Yeah, yeah, that's the idea. Definitely. Yep. Well, AV, it was a fucking fantastic chat that we've had over this past hour. And for the people who want to just talk with you more, look at your content, where can they see it?
Yes, thanks, Justin, for having me. Man. You're right, man. I really enjoyed this. So, you guys, thank you guys for tuning in, man. You guys can follow me on Instagram at Alpha Villains. I also have a YouTube channel, Alpha Villains. You guys can check me out. Basically, it's just some of the content, some of the shows that I've been on that are kind of in line with what Justin and I have been talking about for the last hour. But I appreciate everyone's support, man. And Justin, like I said, once I get everything down, and I would love to have you on my channel as well, so we can further this conversation because I know we got a lot more shit to talk about.
Yeah, dude,
I
definitely.
appreciate you, man. Thank
Yes. All right. That is it, everybody. This is the Forge Project, and we're out. For coaching inquiries, please email questions to theforgeproject.org@gmail.com.